Hello, and welcome to another episode of Third Chances. I had people asking me often if the redox signaling molecules technology that I work with could benefit the health of their dog, cat, or even horses. And being an animal mom most of my life, I too was always looking for food and supplements first before we start adding some toxic medicine into their body. And that's the main reason why I tried to get Dr. Morin on for some time. Eventually, he offered the next best thing to use his previously recorded remarks. He's going to talk about his own experience, and for those who love their furry babies more than themselves, he's also going to touch on his experience with animals. If you are like me, into all things natural and safe first, and wonder what could help your animal thrive safely, Redox can enhance their body's natural ability to heal just like it does for people. I do regret that I didn't know about this or learn about its potential long after we lost our own sweet dog, Misha. I would never know if we could have potentially prolonged his life and the quality of his senior years. We are not making any medical claims with our products here, and we are absolutely not suggesting that you don't call your vet or ignore their advice when your animal needs medical care. These molecules do not cure, heal, or diagnose anything. They simply help each and every living cell work the way it was designed, which enables the body to heal itself, and that applies across all the species. Also important to know is that the product is 100% safe, non-toxic. We have clinical studies that confirm this. So you can feel safe to use it in generous quantities on any animal that happens to cross your path. So Dr. Martin Morin graduated Auburn University and he's a doctor of veterinary medicine. He has been a research-oriented veterinarian for nearly 50 years. During his career, he worked at the National Institute of Health and later on at 2 international pharmaceutical companies. So he have looked at it from every angle, from conducting research to improve human health to supporting humane animal care. Dr. Morin has been closely involved with biomedical research for 40 years. Just so you know, Dr. Morin's lifelong work has been published as peer-reviewed research to improve human and animal health. So Dr. Morin is also an expert in the science of redox signaling and the best person to talk to when it comes to health and our animals. You may be curious what this picture is about. That's Dr. Morin when he started applying the redox signaling molecules on just one half of his face. He will tell you all about it.
We did have a slide up on the screen to remind some people know me as a veterinarian, and others know me because of this half-face experiment that I did with the gel form of our redox molecules. And so, you know, this was 28 days with the gel on one side of my face, not the other. We could get into why I did it that way, but it was an interesting experiment, and it obviously showed that the skin cells on one side of my face responded differently than the side that did not get the gel. And we can kick off right from there. I mean, redox molecules are a part of every cell in your body, and they help the body know where the problems are. So in this particular case, obviously my body got a signal that the skin could look a little better than it did at the time. And you saw that it actually, not only there's fewer wrinkles, it's actually thicker, more moisture. And there's no moisture in the product. So while we might be tempted to use words that we're not supposed to use, like ones that start with an H, it's really not because of the product. It's because the body knows that cells could do better. Cells could improve their function. And that's kind of what we want to talk about some tonight, that we have a technology that can benefit all humans and all of our pets. While we're not marketing it directly for pets, but it can help all cells, all living cells. In fact, Kathy and I love to spray roses when we bring them in the house. We just spray them with the liquid form of the product, and they last a little longer. It's not going to save the world, but it's fun. One of the ways I like to describe this technology, and actually the first person I heard describe it this way was Dr. Gary Samuelson, so I'll take it that it's probably pretty accurate. But I was on phone conversations with Beth getting ready to do this call tonight. And so I picked up my phone, she had a phone, and we were talking to each other. But phones actually can't, cell phones can't make calls to another cell phone without help. In this case, a cell tower. And so inside the body, the same thing is true. Our cells have to talk to each other and to their neighbors and across the body to the immune system. The cells have to be able to communicate. And when they can't, we end up with something like the skin on one side of my face not looking as young as the other, or could be something more challenging, blood sugar, blood pressure, something is not going correctly. And it doesn't matter if we're talking about human cells or animal cells. They work about the same. But understand that your cells need help. And just like the cell phone needs help, and we could think of these redox molecules a little bit like a cell tower, making sure that the call gets through to the other party that needs to be communicated with. Does that make sense? Well, I've talked to a lot of vets because, you know, when I started with my list of friends, that's who they were. And they were older guys like I was. So the interesting thing about this is all adult humans, probably everybody even before adult, like past the age of 15, already becoming deficient in making as many of these molecules as their body would benefit from having. So I just talk to the adult, right? I'm just talking to another person, and I'm finding out where their life could be a little better. It could be their health, it could be something else. But if it's their health, then I can say, hey, well, I have something that might be of interest to you if you're willing to learn about it. The key here is the other person has to be willing to learn. And it doesn't matter if they're a veterinarian or your next door neighbor or the male person. It's really the same conversation. Do they have a need? Do they have some interest in putting some effort into fixing it? Are they willing to learn something? And I'll just put myself on the receiving end of a phone call like that. When the call came to our house, it was actually to my wife, Kathy, from a friend of hers. And, you know, Kathy Hayes just said, look, John and I are using a product and it seems to be helping us. We wonder if you're willing to learn about it. She didn't say much. She just gave us the opportunity to learn. We watched the video. We know Kathy knows nutrition. We know John's an MD. And why are they calling our house to tell us this story? And so we paid attention. We watched the video. We actually decided on the spot we were going to try the product, but we played a little hard to get. You know, you don't want to look easy. So we actually puzzled with a couple of questions for Kathy Hayes, but we right away made an order and we were off to try this new thing. I'll tell you, I wasn't expecting it to work, right? You hear a miracle cure a day, and understand that your veterinarian has heard a miracle cure a day. And he's jaded. He you know, how can all of them be a miracle cure? Right? He's dead to listening to it. And so the day he's limping might be the day to start that conversation. Probably not the day before he's going on vacation. I want the adult to see some value for somebody they themselves or somebody they care about. And once that happens, I let them worry about whether they want to broach the subject with a patient or, the patient's owner, obviously. But that's their call, and that is after they see some value. We have to get past the skeptic, right? Kathy Hayes got past the skeptic when my body started to respond. I wasn't even expecting it to. But when my body started to change, I had to ask why, right? So one of the first people I was calling was John and Kathy Hayes saying, why does this work? They said, call Silverman, right? So I'm calling Dr. David Silverman. We're talking to people and finding out, why does this work? And it's really as simple as a cell tower. It really is not complicated. Your cells just need help to talk to each other and to work efficiently. We have a way to help them work more efficiently. If you're open to that, wonderful. Welcome to the family. I'm going to back up just a little bit. When I talk to anybody, human or talking about a pet of any species, I always want to give advice based on what I would do personally. They're presenting me with some dilemma, and I put myself as having that dilemma. What would I do? Now, understand that I understand redox technology and I understand how valuable it could be, right? So I'm going to make choices based on that information. But assuming they're open, right? I always say it depends on two things: how old and how ill. Two things, right? So Marty now is over 70, but I am not ill, right? I use a fair bit of ASEA, or a fair bit of redox molecules supplement, because of my age. I just can't make as many molecules as my body would benefit from having. And so I'm going to make choices to consume this technology at a higher rate than it might say on the bottle. So age. But then the second factor could be how ill. I mean, we could have a really ill calf. Say its stool is not the way it ought to be, might be a really sick puppy or kitten, but it's young, right? I don't base the serving size. I like serving size. This is a dietary supplement. I don't base it on age then. I base it on the illness, right? And so I'm looking for people to be able to get a fair bit of product to ill older. And that's really where most of my questions come from, is how do I get my dog to drink this? How do I get my cat? Or one of our interesting puzzles recently was a not very well socialized rabbit. And this was a puzzlement, right? We had a rabbit that didn't want to be handled. And yet we found a way to get some molecules into this bunny. And it had not just the benefit they were looking for, it had another benefit. So how? We have to use some training, right? I was talking with a veterinarian this morning, and we talked about a small amount of some food treat. Typically it works best with food treats. Something we know the animal would like and would consume rapidly. And then we put some redox molecules on it, not a lot, just to get started. And we increase the amount of liquid redox molecules as we keep the treat small. And over time, we've got a dog or a cat that's diving through liquid redox molecules to get to the treat at the bottom. And pretty soon all the liquid redox molecules are gone too. And before you know it, we have an animal that's trained and the animal won't need the treat. And I would actually say exactly the same thing about your child. Young children aren't going to necessarily like this because it's different. But if we give them the treat pit and we do a little bit of training, we will quickly get past to the fact that children and animals figure this out much faster than any adult. And most taste is actually connected to smell anyway. So they can actually smell the redox molecules and they're already backing up. So we have to do something to bring them to experience the technology. And what I mentioned to the veterinarian this morning, I mean, you best prepare, if you did use this on some animals, you best prepare the lady with the 14-year-old dog to have a puppy. I mean, don't surprise her. Tell her there may be a puppy in her future that used to be a 14-year-old dog. And many cat owners get mad at me because their cats become a pest, right? As soon as they get anywhere near the redox molecule, the cat's there. The cat wants the molecule. And to me, that's called serve, right? If the animals are asking for it, we serve. And the other thing I try to tell people to do is to create a place to serve these redox molecules that is not food and water station. This is not about food and water. We want that wherever you put the food and water station, the redox station is someplace else. And if you see your pet hanging out there, or if you see your cat on the counter when you pick up the redox molecules, that's a signal that they would like you to pour. And so if people do go to that website, animalwebinar.com, and they look through the archive, one of my favorite stories is still the KO story, which is, it's been there a while now, so you'll have to scroll down and look for KO. KO like punching and boxing and knockout, KO. And it's a fabulous testimony because the dog would have actually been euthanized, except that it was the weekend and the veterinarian was closed. And the man went off to do something, I forget what. His mother was babysitting the dog with redox molecules. And by the time he got back, this very, very sick dog was sitting up looking at him and had another year of life that wasn't a sick, weak year of life. It was a quality year of life before the dog did pass. But the point is, it would have been euthanized if it had been a Friday. It was just happened to be a Saturday or a Sunday. And the guy got another year to spend with his dog. I mean, it's like that old credit card commercial, you know? It's just priceless, isn't it? Back to our disclaimer, right? The molecules are what? The molecules are making sure the cells can communicate with each other so that the body, you know, a human baby in the womb, a litter of puppies in the womb are already replacing cells. They haven't even had their first breath of air, but the cells are already being replaced in the womb. So how much more does Marty need to replace cells at over 70, right? And this is all that's happening. The redox molecules are making the connection so the body can start fixing things that it didn't know it was supposed to fix. You know, I want every day to get up and I consume my redox molecules, I put it on my skin, and I know two things. One, it will be absolutely safe, and two, it will always work. It will always help my cells function on a higher level, just like I had enough bars on my cell phone to talk to Beth yesterday, right? It's really simple, folks. Don't miss this. Then just trust that the animal is going to figure this out fairly quickly, that these molecules are positive. And I have watched way too many humans walk away from benefits with this technology, but I've never seen an animal walk away from it. Never. And so here's a pet in our family. This is my grandson, Grant, my oldest grandson. This is his family dog, Maisie. Maisie's a standard poodle, the large poodle. She's really fast. And one day she was chasing after a chipmunk. The chipmunk made a turn. She looked after it, ran headfirst into an overhanging rock, and was immediately down on the ground. My grandson came to get me when I arrived on the scene of the accident. I had 3 grandchildren, a daughter and a wife, looking at the veterinarian to do some trick, some magic. There was no magic to do that day. Actually, I pulled out my phone and started trying to call some veterinary friends in that area because I was on vacation. And they all told me it was late in the day. They were fully booked. They were closing. I needed to take Miss Maisie a 1-hour drive to a veterinarian that I didn't know. I wasn't thrilled about that. By that time, my wife Kathy was shaking the Redox Signaling molecule bottle at me, saying, "Why don't we try this?" So my wife Kathy was thinking a lot clearer than I was. And fortunately for us, Maisie loves ASEA and drinks it almost every day. So I started to pour ASEA into the palm of my hand, and she was drinking it, even still down on the grounds, down on the floor of the building at that point. And she was drinking it out of my cupped hand. She did that, you know, as she would take it, I would pour. As she would take it, I would pour. As she would take it, I would continue to pour. Eventually, she struggled up to her feet, which I took as a good sign. She continued to drink from my cupped hand. As she took it, I poured. As she took it, I poured. And eventually, she walked away from me. I thought, well, that's another encouraging sign. So I put a leash on her. We didn't need to chase any more chipmunks. And I took her outside, and she was moving quite well. The property is very steep. I took her down a steep driveway, a steep road. I brought her back up a staircase. I am a veterinarian, so I was watching very closely. All the paws were going down exactly the right place. None of the feet were knuckling over or dragging. None of the limbs was dragging behind. All the feet were going down like you saw the Jack Russell jumping the curb or jumping over the grate. She was moving perfectly. This all happened in 1 hour. Right. So of all the wonderful things I've experienced personally or watched happen on members of my team or other teams in ASEA, this I watched with my own 2 eyeballs. Within 1 hour, I had a dog totally recovered. I cannot name a veterinary drug that could have done that. I cannot name a human drug that could have done that for Miss Maisie. This is not about drugs. This is about cells functioning better and cells communicating better.